Hello everyone and welcome to my bold and beautiful update channel. I hope today fantastic for everyone. Please hit the subscribes button and give this video thumbs up. An urgent medical update from Dr. Buckingham regarding Liam's new test results. According to previews for The Bold and the Beautiful, Dr. Grace Buckingham's urgent medical update will be disclosed when Liam Spencer receives some new test results. Let's talk about Liam's future once he goes to the hospital for additional brain scans the week of May 19th to 23rd. Even while Liam has come to terms with his terrible fate, it still doesn't feel quite genuine. Although Liam's symptoms have been becoming worse, he has had difficulty accepting that he is actually nearing the end of his life. Despite the fact that it is illogical, a tiny part of Liam may want for a miracle when his fresh findings are in. Liam is going to receive some worrying news, but at least he would like to hear that his tumor is growing slowly. According to BNB teasers, Liam will suffer a devastating blow from Dr. Buckingham, and he might discover that his tumor is developing far more quickly than any of them had anticipated. When these latest scans reveal Liam's rapidly deteriorating condition, the neuro team won't have anything encouraging to say. Since Dr. Buckingham will be the one explaining everything to Liam, he might insist on getting a rough idea of how long he has left. Since each patient is unique, it is impossible to know for sure, but Liam will undoubtedly leave this meeting with the knowledge that he must be ready. Hope Logan has already reassured Liam that he is not a burden, despite his desire to avoid being one. Steffy Forrester shares Hope's sentiments and will want to support Liam no less. Liam has found it difficult to talk about any of this, but it would be good to see Steffy and Hope support him when he needs it. Liam might use this as an opportunity to vent and make some last requests before passing away. According to spoilers for The Bold and the Beautiful, Liam's storyline is going to get even more heartbreaking, so be sure to check in for Dr. Buckingham's information and the resulting grief. A startling turn of events alters everything, but Liam survives the tumor. Liam Spencer may survive the tumor, but his life may take a drastic turn afterward, according to spoilers and updates for The Bold and the Beautiful. What if his personality, habits, and perhaps even his memories are altered by the tumor? Why do the physicians not seek a miracle cure? Finn, Bridget Forrester, Grace Buckingham, and the rest of the neurology team have now given Liam a dire prognosis. His brain has developed a sizable tumor, which they say cannot be operated on. They assert unequivocally that there are no alternatives for intervention or elimination. The fact that Finn, Grace, and the rest of the medical staff are not seeking any treatments to lessen the tumor or stop its growth seems completely unreal. It is completely different from the time that Eric Forrester's life was saved by a miraculous treatment after he developed a fatal cardiac disease. Liam's personality could be completely altered by the tumor. Since they haven't considered every possibility, it appears that they won't get rid of Liam just yet. This does not, however, imply that Liam will come out of this experience unaltered. Whatever we hope for, there might be a medicine that could lower the tumor, save his life, or perhaps enable surgery. However, you are aware that brain surgery can result in notable behavioral changes if you have ever come across someone who has a brain tumor or traumatic brain injury. Unexpected outcomes may occur once you begin to interfere with the brain, particularly when a tumor is pressing down. It's unlikely that Liam will be killed. Given that Liam is a beloved character and that Scott Clifton is a talented actor who has won 3 Daytime Emmys, it seems quite unlikely that he will pass away. This health problem, however, may present an opportunity to drastically change his personality and perhaps lead him in a different way. Liam's family and friends, including Hope Logan, Steffy Forrester, and Bill Spencer, may be taken aback if Brad Bell plans to do this. Liam might turn out to be someone entirely different. Brain disease, trauma, or tumors can cause such changes, which might result in full personality changes. I know someone who went through this. His wife believed he had turned into a nasty person who was pursuing other women and being cruel to her and the children. Would Liam become dark? We may witness a scenario with Liam in which Hope is taken aback since she wants to reconcile with him and it appears that they can do so. This can come as a surprise. Hope might choose to give Liam another chance, but she might be let down if he transforms into someone she doesn't know. There might be a twist in which Liam survives a dire circumstance but temporarily turns darker. Since Liam has always been a nice and caring person, this would be a significant difference from how Bill Spencer, Steffi, Hope, and others know him. Even when he messes up or cheats, as he did with Steffi and Hope, Liam is usually calm and gentle. He isn't hostile or upset. Could Dollar Bill be channeled by Liam? To put it briefly, Liam is completely different from Dollar Bill. Even during their altercation, Liam was primarily defensive rather than irate or hostile. Although Liam looks like a really good guy, it would be shocking if he started acting like Dollar Bill and changed his behavior drastically following the brain tumor incident. He may undergo surgery to remove the tumor and resume his regular life, but there's a chance that he will return a different person. Personality changes can result from brain damage. Liam may turn into someone quite different from the person we love, cold, hostile, or aloof. Is Liam going to waffle again? It's possible that Liam may revert to his erratic behavior and start chasing Steffi rashly while eluding Hope and Finn. Hope, Finn, and Steffi would all be appalled by this. Hope now believes that Liam may be genuinely devoted to her alone, thus if he were to do this, it would break her heart and make her think that he has regressed and abandoned his commitment. If Hope were to get back together with Liam and find out that he has changed from the man she once loved, she would be completely saddened. She sees Liam as her future, so if he were to turn bad or even evil, it would undoubtedly give the narrative a fascinating new angle. Scott Clifton's new storyline type. It would be unexpected and novel for this tumor plot to end with Liam living but becoming a darker version of himself. It could also be entertaining and intriguing to see Liam grow more evil. Scott Clifton could appreciate the opportunity to creatively explore such wild material. Since it gives them more freedom to express themselves and broadens their emotional range, many actors who typically play good characters adore the chance to play villains. Brad Bell rarely surprises us, but when he does, it would be fantastic. This might be interesting and different. Even if Liam doesn't die, it might result in Hope and him getting back together. Is Liam offering hope for next week's Collision Course? After learning that Liam Spencer on the CBS soap opera Bold and the Beautiful doesn't have much time left, Hope Logan is left in a shambles. Hope pledged to keep Liam's death a secret. However, her actions were blatantly obvious to Liam. He realized almost immediately that she was aware of his impending death on the CBS soap opera. However, Carter Walton just so happens to arrive at the door in time to hear Hope Logan and Liam Spencer discussing the future. However, he is unaware of the background of their chat. This makes room for a serious injustice, which is what Hope Logan is going to experience. Liam Spencer pushes Hope Logan to Carter Walton in Bold and the Beautiful. Carter Walton plays a desperate character in Bold and the Beautiful. His goal is to reunite with Hope Logan. However, we'll soon find out if the consequences of his listening in outside Hope's door drive him to an irreversible loss. Carter feels betrayed and enraged as Hope tells Liam Spencer that they should spend their future together. Liam pushes Hope Logan in the direction of Carter Walton in Bold and the Beautiful. When Carter initially listened at Hope's door, he heard this. When he heard Liam speaking up for him, it made him grin. However, he didn't show signs of distress in this bold and beautiful moment until Hope Logan spoke. Hope discusses her future belonging with Liam rather than expressing her love for Carter and agreeing with Liam. Liam survives his tumor, but his life spirals out of control in Bold and the Beautiful. #Brave and Beautiful. Carter Walton makes hasty conclusions regarding Hope in B&B. Liam's death is a crucial component of this mystery that Carter is ignorant of on Bold and the Beautiful. According to Carter, Hope believes she will be with Liam for the remainder of his life. However, he is unaware of how fleeting that future is. Despite her desire to be with him, Steffi Forrester has no plans to exchange Finn for Liam. That is most likely what Hope intended and what Carter misinterpreted, but will it be too late by the time the matter is resolved? Heartbroken and distraught by what he heard Hope say to Liam, Carter returns to Forrester Creations. And who is prepared to support him during his suffering? That would be Daphne Rose. However, Daphne is perplexed by Carter's abrupt change of heart. Daphne had advised Carter an hour or two earlier that Hope would probably return to Liam after speaking with FC staff. Previews for The Bold and the Beautiful indicate that Carter is interested in Daphne this time around, despite his previous outburst. Next week, it appears that Carter will make a grave error. Brave and lovely, one door closes softly, but the other slams firmly. Liam Spencer anticipates spending his remaining years with Hope, Steffi, and their daughters in Bold and the Beautiful. However, he is also content knowing the two ladies he loves are in love with fine men, and he would never get in the way of that. Liam kindly informs Hope that they will not be a couple again. However, much as he wants Steffi to be in his life till the end, he still wants her in his future. Carter probably gets back together with Daphne before learning that Liam is dying and learning the truth about what Hope was saying the day he overheard them conversing. Bold and the Beautiful, will Hope and Liam get married on their deathbed? #Brave and Beautiful. Just as Carter and Daphne make their decision, Bold and the Beautiful appear to be preparing to send Hope Logan over to Carter's residence. Hope is urged by Liam Spencer to tell Carter that she loves him despite her hurt. In the meantime, Carter tells Daphne how hurt he is by Hope's use of him following what he overheard her say to Liam. He also claims that with that takeover, he nearly ruined his life for her. He now holds Hope accountable for the FC coup. After Hope discovers Daphne and Carter together, it appears that this will turn into a Bold and the Beautiful collision. This effectively closes the door in Hope's face. It appears like Hope Logan will have a traumatic experience next week when she stumbles upon Carter and Daphne on the CBS soap opera, unless his love for Hope stops him and saves the day. Hope is redeemed by Liam's death. Liam's passing wasn't the story's conclusion, rather, it was the silent, jarring moment that broke down the barriers of hopelessness and gave it a chance to breathe again after being buried for so long behind layers of suffering and gloom. It was a death that held meaning, not just a finality, but a catalyst, and it reverberated more loudly than any war cry and more persistently than any victory of the living. Hope had not always been embodied by Liam. In the beginning, he was just a man attempting to make it in a world that had lost its sense of purpose, where everyone was turning inward and becoming silent and resentful, and where fear was tearing apart every relationship. At first, he wasn't a hero. He doubted as much as he believed, and tripped as much as he stood. But as many around him grew weaker or more cynical, Liam made a different decision. He made the decisions to be kind when it would have been simpler to be cruel, honest when it would have been safer to be dishonest, and loving when it seemed that the only way to protect himself was to be indifferent. By repeatedly making that decision, he created a silent legacy, one of bridges repaired and hearts healed, rather than one of grandeur or celebrity. Because of this, when Liam passed away, suddenly, cruelly, but unquestionably with purpose, his loss filled the world rather than emptying it. It served as a reminder of the value of one life and the far-reaching effects of giving up something. His last deed was a conscious act of giving rather than one of flight or resignation. He put himself in danger because he wanted other people to survive, not because he wanted to die. And as a result, something amazing occurred. People who had lost hope started to believe again. Love was remembered by those who had resorted to bitterness. His passing was a redemptive fire that burned away apathy and blazed a way forward, not a tragedy that brought everything to an end. His pals might have become numb due to their grief-shattered state. Instead, they started talking again, this time about the potential he held, not just the grief of losing him. They presented his narrative as a charge rather than a eulogy. Once mute and shattered, the youngsters he protected resumed their play, conjuring up pictures of a guy who would smile at them when no one else would. After years of distrust, the town gradually started to come together. First at Liam's tomb, then in the neighborhood with the dilapidated houses he used to repair. Fragmented and exhausted, the community began to stitch itself back together with shaky hands. The paradox of Liam's passing is that, despite his absence, he was more present than ever. His recollection sparked motion. Because Liam had reminded them of something they had forgotten, that one life, lived with courage and compassion, could rekindle the soul of an entire people. People started to chant his name with reverence rather than just grief. His sacrifice was massive in purpose but modest in scope. He did not overthrow a dictator or destroy a beast. When others sat down, he just got up. When others ran away, he stepped forward. And he became extraordinary in that everyday courage. Those who had become accustomed to quiet started singing once more, both songs of renewal and songs of sadness. And Liam lived on in every note. Through his death, hope returned to the world as a resolute, durable force rather than as a naive optimism. It wasn't about denying the hurt or acting as though everything had improved. It came down to deciding to fight for the cause he died for every single day. In tiny deeds of kindness, a meal shared, a hand extended, a wall rebuilt, his name became into a whispered commitment. As a result, Liam's spirit soared as his corpse was lowered into the ground, not in a spectral way, but rather through the very real, physical deeds of those he left behind. This is what his death accomplished: it changed the future rather than erased the past. He turned into the seed that gave rise to hope once more. Liam was not a martyr in this case for the sake of martyrdom. He didn't look for glory in death. He paid it without any ceremony, accepting it as a price. His calm death proclaimed something fundamentally true in a world devoid of meaning, that hope is a fire we choose to tend to rather than a light we wait for. And sacrifice is sometimes used to light that fire. Liam's last breath marked the start of a chorus rather than the conclusion of his voice. It is still carried by those who heard it. In broken, brave hope, not blind faith. The kind that, despite sadness, rises every dawn. The kind that, despite its grief, has faith. The kind that redeems by becoming the light rather than by forgetting the darkness. Therefore, Liam's death was a resurrection rather than a passing. Not of himself, but of the entire notion that wonderful things can happen, that love is worthwhile, and that redemption is possible even in the darkest moments. It had been a question in his life. His demise, a response. And hope was the response. Steffi is hit by Liam's whopper of a dying request. For a moment so raw, so profoundly debilitating, that it would burn itself into Steffi's consciousness for the rest of her life, it took place in the calm turmoil of a hospital room, with machines humming silently and the smell of antiseptic in the air. Pale and exhausted, with his breath rattling shallowly in his chest, Liam reached out with trembling fingers and tightly grasped her hand. His eyes, those familiar eyes that had once gazed at her with confusion, love, laughter, and rage, were now clouded by the waning light of life. In that final, desperate moment, he made a request so big, so impossible, that it almost tore her heart in two. He was not meant to pass away, not in this manner or at this time. They had endured too much, including betrayals, reconciliations, childbirth, and the death of dreams, yet somehow, they had always found their way back to one another like stars in orbit with irresistible gravity. She had been there for him through apologies and indiscretions, weddings, and mistakes, and now she was back, but this time there was no turning back. Liam's voice broke this time as he realized he was bidding farewell. Furthermore, he made no requests for pardon, peace, or a pledge to remember him. Instead, he asked her to care for Hope and the children, not just as family, not as co-parents, not as friends, but as something more, which caused her chest to collapse inward and left her stunned into complete silence. He wanted her to love them as much as she loved them. Steffi blinked, certain she had misheard him, but he tightened his grip on her palm and spoke it again, urgently and hoarsely. "If I go, don't let Hope fall apart. Support her. Act as the adhesive. Be what I am no longer able to be." The room whirled. Steffi ended up holding the dying man she had loved for the majority of her adult life and hearing him ask her to take on the very person who had stood between them repeatedly, not out of retaliation or bitterness, but out of love. Steffi had spent years in complex entanglements with Hope, whose rivalry had been the subject of legend, whose pain over sharing Liam had left deep, invisible scars. He was requesting that she step in rather than move on or step aside. To uphold his legacy and heal the division between two families who had fought, grieved, and still managed to raise happy kids despite everything. She wanted to shout, to demand that he stop talking as if he wouldn't make it, to tell him that he was being selfish for asking her this, but she was unable to do so. Because he saw just selfless desperation and nothing selfish. Hope wasn't the one he was picking over her. He was picking them all. He was going for peace. She was gutted by it. She opened her mouth, but said nothing. How could she make such a promise? To raise the children of another woman when her heart was still entangled in unresolved love and grief? To comfort the lady who had repeatedly stolen Liam away from her? To arrive, entire and strong, just as anguish was tearing her apart? However, Liam's eyes remained fixed, and the display next to him reminded him that this was the present and not some possible future. It counted out the seconds like a countdown. This actually happened. She moved in closer, gripping his hand as tears ran down her cheeks, and at last she mumbled, "Okay, okay, Liam," as he coughed, a wet, rattling sound that sent a chill down her chest. "Yes, I will. I swear." She was unsure of how she would pull it off, where she would find the grace or the strength, but she was certain that she would not disappoint him, not in this. Something inside of her changed at that very instant, something hard and harsh broke open, and she saw the children instead of the sorrow and the old competition. Kelly. Beth. Douglas. Little lives have been created in the midst of this huge, gorgeous, damaged chaos. Now, they were important. Liam was aware of it. He had asked for that reason. That's why he continued to think about everyone else even as his own life faded away. Asking for togetherness in the midst of grief was the most Liam could have done. Steffi clung to that promise as if it were the only thing holding her to the floor as his eyelids flickered closed and the monitor dipped into that eerie, steady tone that signaled it was gone. She refused to let him die with his last request. She struggled to cope with the waves of grief that swept over her in the weeks that followed, but she persevered. She went to hope for a deeper reason, something Liam's last breath had evoked in her, rather than out of obligation or sympathy. At first, Hope was unable to comprehend it since she was astonished and fragile. "What brings you here?" Her voice was broken as she asked. "Because he asked me to be," Steffi responded simply, and they sat together, first in quiet, then in tears, and then in a state of calm. It wasn't simple. They moved through it cautiously, like two people wandering through fog, feeling their way toward something that may one day be termed friendship. There were disagreements, miscommunications, and unfiltered memories that came back like ghosts. The kids were the first to notice. The shared holidays where laughter didn't feel forced, the playdates that didn't end in conflict. The shared weight of bedtime stories, the skinned knees, the emotional landmines, the home-cooked meals that were handed across the table, and the knowing looks. And throughout it all, Liam was there, not as a ghost, but as a beacon of light. Even while Steffi occasionally wore her sorrow-like armor, it didn't make her icy. She became stronger as a result. Not to keep the wound open, but to keep the love alive, she talked about Liam a lot. She read Douglas the letters Liam had written when he thought he would have more time, told Kelly stories, and showed Beth pictures. And in doing so, she woven him into their lives in a way that was sustaining rather than melancholy. And gradually, Hope started to perceive her as a survival partner rather than as the other woman. A future was the gift Liam had given them both, albeit in different kinds. And it ended up saving them, even if it had cost him everything. The two women would sit on the porch and watch their kids play years later, when the grief had subsided into something softer and more gentle. Steffi would occasionally grin to herself as she reflected on the moment Liam asked the unthinkable and how, somehow, that moment had become the cornerstone of a life that neither of them had anticipated but that they had grown to cherish. Because in the end, Liam's incredible last request was more than simply a last cry, it was a challenge, a blessing, and a bridge forged from the ruins of heartache. And Steffi had crossed it in spite of everything.